Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Almassian. The long-anticipated counteroffensive of Ukraine started at least a week and 10 days ago, and we are following the development underground. We're watching the maps to see where the Ukrainian army is advancing or retreating and what's happening to the Russian forces. The media sold us the counteroffensive in a way that the Ukrainian army is very well equipped, very well prepared, because they have received new type of weaponry, especially in terms of the artilleries, the tanks from the European countries, from the United States, and they were training courses, right, for the Ukrainian military personnel. It's in Germany, in the UK, and other European countries. So this is the time now for Ukraine to launch its counteroffensive. But there are a few questions and few things I want to discuss about this before I go to the main part of this video, which is the secret Russian weapon to counter the counteroffensive of Ukraine. First things first, do not follow the media, guys. And I'm very genuinely saying this. I know many Ukrainians or many pro-Ukrainian people do not believe me, and they consider me that I'm their enemy, and they slander me and do everything. I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. Do not listen to the media, because if you watch the media, you will think that the Ukrainian army has turned into some sort of a grandizer or some sort of a gladiator and some sort of a superhero that can now launch a counteroffensive and break and wipe out the Russian army. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen for many reasons, one of which is the type of the armament, the traditional armament, that the conventional armament, let's say, that the Russian army has. In the quantity, probably 10 times more than the Ukrainian side. The personnel, probably 10 times more than the Ukrainian side. And also in terms of the technology. The Ukrainian army is devastated. So this period of time that the Ukrainian side has to retreat so that they can train new military personnel and receive new type of weaponry indicates that Ukraine was not winning. So all this talk before the counteroffensive that Ukraine is winning and the Russians are losing, it turned out that it's not correct. So why do you think this time is everything will be different? And why the Ukrainian army has to launch a counteroffensive if they were winning? Just logically speaking, because Ukraine was retreating from strategic places in Mariupol, in Bakhmut, in several places in the Donbass Oblast, for example. So they were losing. That's why there is a counteroffensive, right? But the media was telling you the opposite. So I'm really trying to tell you guys that the NATO side is using the Ukrainians as a cannon fodder in this conflict for the sake of the American hegemony over the world and not for the sake of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. This is just my humble opinion. Take it or leave it. Now, we have so many things to speak about, guys, here. The counteroffensive of Ukraine now, okay, has it failed? We cannot say it has completely failed because the Ukrainian side still denies that they launched the counteroffensive. The officials say we haven't yet. Some of them say yes. But underground, we can see that the Ukrainian army is trying to advance in several oblasts, in several axes, especially in the south and the east. So there is an attempt by the Ukrainian army to move forward. Has it failed? How do we measure failure? In my opinion, failure and success in this regard, when you try to launch a counteroffensive, we can measure it by seeing how many square kilometers the Ukrainian army captured from the Russian side, or more importantly, which important strategic geography has Ukraine occupied and recaptured from the Russian side. And if you watch the map of control, you see clearly that the Ukrainian side hasn't occupied strategic locations yet. And this is what the New York Times the other day was warning, that after all these weapons, ammunition, training, and media support for Ukraine, and that's fine because the Americans have to support them, right? What have the Ukrainians done with all this weaponry? So question mark. And Biden wants for the Ukrainian side to achieve some successes and some victories before the elections, because he's also going to run and he has to show to the people that the American side is the strongest force in the world and they're leading this operation in Ukraine, of course, by using the Ukrainians, unfortunately. But it's not happening. It's not happening, guys. So this is just my humble, let's say, opinion. and from Syrian who lived a war. And I truly believe that Ukrainians have no chance to survive in this war. And what's gonna come next is just more casualties in the ranks of of course, the Ukrainians. They probably 10 times more compared to the Russian side. Now, one of the most important factors for Russia to continue its successes in Ukraine is the aerial superiority. Aerial superiority is very, very detrimental in Ukraine, in Israel, Palestine, for example. If you see the conflicts between the Arabic countries and Israel, that Israel was able to destroy several defense lines and also the air defenses, and was able to wipe out entire tank units during the past wars. And it's still relevant today. It's true that the Air Force cannot liberate territories, but it can clear the way for the ground forces to move forward. And this has happened after 2015 also in Syria, when the Russian army intervened in Syria against ISIS, Jabhat al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, etc. And the Russian forces were very competent in eliminating the defense lines of this terrorist group so that the Syrian army and other allied forces can advance. So it's still relevant in this war. So without an air support or air or fighter jets, Ukraine cannot launch a counteroffensive. It's just like they're pushing them into abyss. The people who are telling us that Ukraine will achieve victories with a counteroffensive, with an army that doesn't have an air force, they're fooling you. They're completely fooling you. They're sending you to your demise, period. So the aerial superiority of Russia is still relevant, and they're very successful if you see the videos and the footage that is coming from Ukraine. So that is why there is all this talk now about the F-16, that they want to provide Ukraine with F-16 fighter jets. And there are two issues with this, one of which is Ukrainian air bases are either destroyed by the Russian forces at the beginning of the war, or they will be destroyed by the Russian forces because they still have a superiority, aerial superiority, ammunition, and also the long-range missiles. So in any case, even if the Ukrainians receive F-16, they're not going to be able to operate it from inside Ukraine. So they're going to use other countries' territories. Where? Poland? Okay, let's suppose Poland will give them that access. Is Poland really that full to allow such a suicidal mission on its territory? Because if the fighter jets are departing from Poland, then Russia will try to strike them inside of Poland, and Poland is a NATO country, and that means NATO can intervene directly. So the F-16, in my opinion, can really change the nature of the conflict from proxy war into direct war between these two sides, NATO and Russia, and that is very, very, very dangerous, in my opinion. So using neighboring countries to launch F-16s against Russian forces, it's very dangerous. And I'm not saying this with bias toward Russia. I'm just telling you facts, guys, that probably those so-called experts and journalists aren't telling you. So what is this so-called Russia's secret weapon? It seems that Russia is using, during the extensively used the kamikaze drone called Lancet 3. And we have to understand that in the modern warfare, these drones are very, very, very crucial. We have seen them in Azerbaijan, for example. They have used the Turkish drones against the Armenian defense forces in Artsakh or Nagorno-Karabakh, and they annihilated them only with drones. The ground forces, their tanks, their artillery, everything. They didn't have to send ground forces until everything is wiped out. And the Russians are doing the same now. Israel has invested a lot in drones and also kamikaze drones. Iran has provided Russia with lots of drones, but Iranians also provided them to Hezbollah, provided them to Syria. So there is in this modern warfare, these kamikaze drones are playing a crucial role in changing the equations on the ground. And similarly, it's happening now with Russia, and Russia is using them extensively. I'm going to show you guys a reportage about the efficacy of these drones, and you will see how efficient it is and detrimental against the modern tanks and modern artilleries. And please remember, these kamikaze drones may cost between $20,000 to $40,000, whereas the tanks that are being destroyed by them are between $8 to $10 million. So the costs, they're not comparable, and the Russians are using them very successfully. So now I will show you this report, guys, so we see them together. This is from Kim.com's page. He says, the counteroffensive is going terrible for Ukraine and NATO. Low-cost Russian Lancet drones turn billions worth of Western arms into scrap metal, while Russian electronic jammers disable the Ukrainian drones. Try diplomacy instead? I mean, yeah, bro, but they don't want to do it. So let's check it together.
Ukrainians are not superheroes and face casualties on a daily basis. Today, I will show you unique videos of Russians destroying Ukrainian equipment. This is an American M777 howitzer. Next to it is a supply track and ammunition is laid out. The Ukrainians, realizing that the installation will be hit, scatter. The Russian UAV hits the exact target and destroys the howitzer. No one is injured. And this is the Stormer HVM SAM. The Russian reconnaissance drone has been observing the target for a long time. The second drone is already on its way to the target. The rare and valuable SAM has been destroyed. And this is the Polish AHS Krab self-propelled artillery unit. The UAV dives and hits the target. The hit causes fire and destroys the launcher. And this is a battery of Ukrainian S-300 SAMs. They are the backbone of the country's air defense. A kamikaze drone strike on the installations leads to a powerful explosion and the destruction of an adjacent installation. Everything that you saw earlier was the work of the Russian Zala Lancet UAV. At least 250 different pieces of equipment were destroyed by Russians using it. The Russians discovered the M777 howitzer. The Ukrainians tried to camouflage it, but it did not help. Such a drone strike on the exposed assemblies and units of the howitzer is highly likely to destroy it. At best, some of it can be used for spare parts. The camouflage did not help in this case either. The Ukrainians were too late to start hiding the gun. A Lancet hit the howitzer. The Russians found a rare 2S-19 MSTA-S SPH and sent a Lancet UAV. These self-propelled artillery units are valuable because of their 152mm caliber. A Russian drone detected the installation's location and relayed the coordinates to a Zala Lancet crew. The ordnance was dispatched and hit the SPH. A Russian reconnaissance drone detects an M777 howitzer. Ukrainians cover the howitzer with a camouflage net after several shots. The Russians launch a Lancet on the coordinates of the howitzer. After such a hit, the howitzer is destroyed. Often, on the final trajectory, the Lancet UAV maneuvers sharply. Pay attention to this point. The range of such a warhead drone is about 70 kilometers. The Russians are actively using it for counter-battery warfare. This is a Swedish-made RM-70 MLRS. The drone hits the ammunition compartment, resulting in a severe detonation. And this is a Ukrainian 2S1 Gvozdika SPH. The Ukrainians begin to weld grids on them to protect them from Lancets and attack drones. In this video, 2 Lancets got stuck in such a grid. And in this case, the Lancet had no problem destroying the Ukrainian SPH. This is the destroyed Gvozdika SPH. We can see that the anti-drone net did not help her. Lancets are launched with a metal rail. The rail can be mounted on machinery, on the ground, and even on a ship. A drone detects an AFU self-propelled artillery unit. Lancet follows to the set target. After such a hit, the vehicle is probably destroyed. And this is the destruction of the Grad MLRS. There was no detonation after the Lancet hit. Perhaps there was no ammunition in the launcher. There are Ukrainians standing and watching the installation. It is dangerous to approach. The fire destroyed the vehicle. Russian reconnaissance in the forests of Crimea discovered a Ukrainian howitzer. Its silhouette resembles the M777. The Russians launched the Lancet. An accurate hit destroys the howitzer and causes a large fire with the detonation of the ammunition. The Ukrainians hid the M777 howitzer between two embankments, but that did not stop the Lancet from hitting its target. The howitzer's crew managed to disperse before the drone strike. None of the Ukrainians were injured, but the howitzer was destroyed. Another howitzer with anti-drone screens. Will they help in this case? Unfortunately, no. This was probably an M109 Paladin self-propelled artillery unit. The Russians spotted it, tracked it down, and when the SPH stopped, launched a Lancet UAV at it. And this is another Ukrainian SPH, very similar to the M109 destroyed by the Russian UAV. The Russians are increasingly using Lancets. Their effectiveness is increasing, and you can judge for yourself after this video. These are the positions of Ukrainian artillerymen. The M777 howitzer is firing at the Russians. The Russians send in a UAV to combat it. The result is the loss of a good howitzer, which is in short supply with the AFU. This is how the Russians destroyed a Polish 155mm AHS Krab SPH and a nearby ammunition truck. The Ukrainians tried to hide the SPH under a camouflage net, but failed. The Russians discovered the installation and sent the Lancet. Lancets are not only used for counter-battery warfare. The Russians are actively destroying Ukraine's air defense system. The Russian drone detects the Tor M1 SAM of Ukraine. The Ukrainians decide to move the installation, but the Lancet is already programmed and flies into the target. This video highlights another feature of the UAV. It is capable of working on fast-moving objects. And this is a British Stormer HVM SAM, of which Ukraine has few. The Russians discovered one of the immobilized units. What happened and why didn't it destroy the drone on approach? A precise hit on the SAM must have taken it out of action. And this is the Gepard SAM. Ukraine has 34 of these. A Lancet easily hits a very rare and valuable complex. Probably this moment, the unit was not working, otherwise it would have easily destroyed such a target. And what happened here is a mystery to me in general. This is a working Buck SAM. The machine did not detect the reconnaissance drone and the Lancet UAV. When the complex began to retreat, it was caught up by the Russian drone. Another Buck M1 complex. The Russians discovered the installation and sent the Lancet. When the munition hit the target, the missiles on the launcher caught fire. The SAM was destroyed. And this Ukrainian OSA SAM stopped on the road. The Russians detected it and launched the Lancet. The drone hit the ammunition, which is why we see such a powerful explosion. In general, these SAMs are designed to combat low-sighted and low-flying objects. But, as in the previous case, the Lancet destroyed the complex. A Russian reconnaissance drone detects two Ukrainian S-300 complexes. They are within range of the Lancets. The drone hits the first target and incapacitates it. Now the second installation. A precise hit on the missile pods leads to a powerful explosion. One vehicle is definitely destroyed, but the second one is badly damaged. Next, the Russian drone notices the movement of two more complexes. The Ukrainians stop and run away. Such a car can't hide from the drone. An accurate hit takes out another complex. Russian reconnaissance detects a deployed S-300 launcher. The Lancet hits the missile pods directly. The Ukrainians decide to quickly relocate the second S-300 launcher. But there is no better shelter than this in the vicinity. These mounds were no barrier to the drone. The second installation was destroyed. In order to blind the Ukrainian air defense systems in certain sectors, the Russians are striking at radar facilities. This is a Ukrainian radar. At the last moment, the drone goes a little to the left of the radar itself and explodes. Why this happened is not clear to me. Probably it is more profitable to damage the electronics than the radar itself. This is the S-300 SAM radar. The Lancet hits the radar. This sector is now temporarily blinded. And this is a rare Ukrainian Bukovel electronic warfare system. It is supposed to counteract Russian drones. A precise hit on sensitive electronics makes the system unusable. Lancets are also used to destroy Ukrainian tanks. Amazingly, a 3-kilogram ammunition charge can penetrate armor and destroy heavy armored vehicles. And in this video, the victim of the Lancet is the Ukrainian BMP-2. As you can see, the Russians are learning a lot, which is why our help and support for Ukraine should not stop. Russia is demonstrating all of the hallmarks of a fascist state, and you all know what that led to last time. Don't forget what and who we are fighting for. If you like today's issue and would
So this is from a pro-Ukrainian channel, which I believe it's a brilliant reportage about the efficacy of these drones, which carries only 3 kilograms of explosives, which is crazy, that is able to destroy tanks, howitzers, Leopards, SAMs, Books, S-300s, MLRS, all this weaponry that been delivered to Ukraine from Poland, United States, Germany, Sweden, and other European countries. In my opinion, when one of the things that people should be very careful about, especially when it comes to wars, is do not underestimate your enemy. And this message is also for the Ukrainians. Do not underestimate your enemy, because the media, some of the European politicians were very, very foolish when they claimed that the Russian economy has been devastated. They're not able to fight, and they don't have spare parts. They don't have missiles anymore. And then they started to fight with spare parts for washing machines and kitchen stuff, etc., etc. Those are all ridiculous claims, guys. And you can see now from this video, which is made by pro-Ukrainian channel, and you can see the technological superiority of the Russian side, and in terms of also the aerial superiority. So do not underestimate your enemy. The Russian side is not weak. And if you want to fight the Russians till the last standing man, this is your concern. Like, the Ukrainians have to choose it, right? But I do not think that's the wise thing to do. The wise thing to do is to sit on a negotiation table and discuss every single thing that has happened, not only in the past year, but also before that, since the coup d'etat in Kyiv, and how the Russian side can give security guarantees to Ukraine, and how the Ukrainian side can give security guarantees to the Russian side, and make a peace deal. That's the only way out of this conflict. Forever fighting only benefits the military-industrial complex in the United States, and prolongs the life of the American empire by the blood and the flesh of the Ukrainian people. That's the truth of it. So Ukraine now declared that they have stopped although they first say that there is no counteroffensive, but at the same time they here declared that the counteroffensive has been put on a hold, and it has been paused temporarily because they want to evaluate the tactics, as it's mentioned here on the Kyiv Independent. So they want to evaluate the tactics. Good for them. I hope that they come to a conclusion that they cannot really win this war. And this is from a very famous Ukrainian influencer who was also, of course, promoting the narrative that they're going to win this war and the counteroffensive will smash the Russian army. And now, as you can see, they look very devastated, and they know now that the media and the politicians in the West, they've sold them a crap. They sold them a lie that they can win and overcome with few tanks against the Russian army. Check how, I want you to see what the Ukrainians are speaking in this regard, so we understand the morale.
Но легко сказать, надо победить. Даже надо победить. Путь тяжелый, изматывающий, изнуряющий. И многим из нас, и мне тоже казалось, что сейчас как рванем, но не получается рвануть. Изматывающая, кровавая, тяжелейшая работа. Каждый день и каждую ночь. По 100, по 200 метров. 1,5 километра, класс. Понимаешь? То есть такого рывка, как в Харьковской области у нас был в прошлом году в сентябре, видимо, в обозримом будущем пока не предвидится, к сожалению. Я лично был настроен на этот рывок. Я думал, сейчас как взмахнем дубиной.
Yeah, it's easy to think that you can win this war or the counteroffensive would be successful, but underground it's completely different. And what's happening underground is also, I will show you another video. And this is from, I think, an American TV channel or a Canadian one. And it is from the CBS, I think it's Canadian. Ukraine will not say how many of its soldiers died in this war. Western officials put the numbers at tens of thousands. The UK say both sides are suffering casualties in the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Today we saw dozens of freshly dug graves, and although the counteroffensive is just beginning, no one expects it to end quickly.
Ukraine won't say how many of its soldiers have died in this war. Western officials put it in the tens of thousands. Of course, many of them were fathers. And more die every day. The UK says both sides are suffering heavy casualties in Ukraine's counteroffensive. The country is winning ground. We saw dozens of freshly dug graves today, and while this offensive is just getting started, no one expects it to be over quickly. Jarika.
Yep. So I wanted to show you this, guys, that the number of casualties are high in the Ukrainian side, and tweets like this, cartoons like this, memes like this do not help. All these so-called NAFO fellas that they think they are brave people and they are, I mean, these people are armchair experts. They know nothing about wars and they're from all around the world and they are with tens of thousands on Twitter and they're just spreading all these trolling comments. If we post anything about Ukraine, they can just post their memes, cartoons, and ridiculous stuff ridiculing you. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, guys. This is not a functioning strategy. You really have to understand that you're sending the Ukrainians to their deaths. And you guys do not even live in Ukraine. So this guy is from Georgia, and tens of thousands of them from all around the world. They're just spreading BS on social media platforms and trying to give the impression to the Ukrainians that they can do it. They cannot. So, as I mentioned, take it or leave it. It's just an advice from someone who really cares about the Ukrainian people, and I do not want other tens of thousands of people to die. The only way out of this conflict is diplomacy, and you will see and you will remember. Please remember this. If it's not now, then probably after a year, maybe after 2 years, maybe after 3, maybe after 5, maybe after 1 million people die, and then still you will come to the same conclusion that the only way out of this conflict is diplomacy, is that the United States and Russia sit and decide how to make Ukraine neutral, and so that Russia doesn't violate or, let's say, harm the Ukrainian security and give security guarantees to Ukraine, and at the same time Ukraine also gives security guarantees to Russia that it won't become a NATO country, and that's the only way out of this conflict. Other than that, if you want to continue fighting, you can do it, but if you want to urge people to go fight yourself. That's the message for you. I've been your host, Almassian of Syriana Analysis. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching this video. I really appreciate it. And special thanks, guys, for all the patrons. We have become around 105 patrons on Syriana Analysis. Thank you very much for your financial support, guys. If you want to support my independent commentary and also analysis and journalistic work, you can become a patron. The link in the description below. And see you next time.